the spiritual master Madhavendra Puri, when Madhavendra was in the last stages of his life and apparently invalid. According to the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it was by this menial bodily service that Ishvara Puri proved his love for a spiritual master and was allowed to become the spiritual master of Lord Chaitanya. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jaya.
Om Namo
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So we're reading Srimad Bhagavatam, and it's Canto 5, Chapter 20, the structure of the universe, and its text 29. Okay, so I'll just go straight into the translation. Outside the ocean of Yoga is another island known as Pushkaradvi, which is 6,400,000 yojanas, 51,200,000 miles wide, twice as wide as the ocean of Yoga. It is surrounded by an ocean of very tasteful water, as broad as the island itself. On Pushkaradvi, there is a great lotus flower with 100 million pure golden petals, as effulgent as the flames of fire. That lotus flower is considered the sitting place of Lord Brahma, who is the most powerful living being, and is therefore sometimes called Bhagavan. In the middle of that island is a great mountain named Manasodra, which forms the boundary between the inner side and the outer side of the island. Its breadth and height are 10,000 yojanas, 80,000 miles. On that mountain, in the four directions, are the residential quarters of the demigods such as Indra. In the chart of the sun god, the sun travels on top of the mountain in an orbit called the Samvatsara, encircling Mount Meru. The sun's path on the northern side is called Uttarayana, and its path on the southern side is called Dakshinayana. One side represents a day for the demigods, and the other represents their night. Oh, so there is a purpose to this, but not much of a purpose. So we'll just read it. It's just a very short one. Prabhupada ki jai. The movement of the sun is confirmed in the Brahmasamhita 552. Yajagaya Bhavati Samvrita Kala Chakra. The sun orbits around Mount Sumeru for 6 months on the northern side and 6 months on the southern. This adds up to the duration of the day and the night of the demigods and the other planetary systems. The ruler of this island, the son of Maharaj Priyavrata, named Vitohotra, had two sons named Ramanatha and Dartaki. He granted the two sides of the island to these two sons, and then personally engaged himself in activities for the sake of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, like his older brother, Medatithi. For the fulfillment of material desires, the inhabitants of this tract of land worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead as represented by Lord Brahma. They offer prayers to the Lord as follows. So everybody can go to the Sanskrit. Yat, Tat, Kamamayam, Lingam, Yat, Tat, Kamamayam, Lingam, Brahma, Lingam, Jano, Richaye, Brahma Lingam, Jano, Richaye, Ekantam, Advayam, Shantam, Ekantam, Advayam, Shantam, Tasmai, Bhagavate, Nama, Iti, Tasmai, Bhagavate, Nama, Iti, Yatakamai, Mayam, Lingam, Ramalingam, Janorichay, Ekantamadvayam Shantam, Tasmai, Bhagavate, Bhagavate Namah
Tasmai Bhagavate Namah
Yatat Kamamayam Lingam
Yatakarmayam Lingam
Ramalingam Janorite
Ramalingam Jaloche
Shikantamadvayam Shantam
Yantamadvayam Shantam
Tasmai Bhagavate Namah
Tasmai Bhagavate Namah
Yatatkarmamayam lingam
Yatakarmayam Lingam
Ramalingam Janochayet
Ramalingam Janoche
Ekantamadvayam Shantam
Ekantamadvayam Shantam
Tasmai Bhagavate Namaiti
Tasmai Bhagavate Namah
Yayatkammayam Lingam
Yatakarmayam Lingam
Ramalingam Janorichaye
Ramalingam Janoche
Akantamadvaya Shantam
Ekantamadvayam Shantam
Tasmai Bhagavate Namah
Tasmai Bhagavate Namah Yattatkarmamayam Lingam
Yattatkarmamayam Lingam
Brahmalingam Janoche
Ramalingam Janochayet
Ekantam Advayam Shantam
Ekantamadvayam Shantam
Tasmai Bhagavate Namah
Tasmai Bhagavate Namaiti
Yatatkarmamayam Lingam
Yattatkarmamayam Lingam
Ramalingam Janochayet
Ramalingam Janoche
Ekantam Advayam Shantam
Ekantam Advayam Shantam
Tasmai Bhagavate Namah
Tasmai Bhagavate Namah
Yatatkarmamayam Lingam
Yattatkarmamayam Lingam
Ramalingam Janochayet
Ramalingam Janoche
Ekantamadvayam Shantam
Ekantam Advayam Shantam
Tasmai Bhagavate Namaiti
Tasmai Bhagavate Namah
Yat, which, Tat, that, Mayam, obtainable by the Vedic ritualistic system. Lingam, the form. Brahmalingam, which makes known the Supreme Brahman. Jana, a person. Acharya, Mushwacha. Ekantam, who has full faith in the one Supreme. Advayam, none different. Shantam, peaceful. Tasmai, unto him. Bhagavate, the most powerful. Namaha, our respects. Iti, thus. Translation. Lord Brahma is known as Karma Maya, the form of ritualistic ceremonies. Because by performing ritualistic ceremonies one may attain his position, and because the Vedic ritualistic hymns become manifest from him, he is devoted to the Supreme Personality of Godhead without deviation, and therefore, in one sense, he is not different from the Lord. Nevertheless, he should be worshipped not as the monists worship him, but in duality. One should always remain in service of the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Worshipful Deity. We therefore offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord, the form of manifest Vedic knowledge. So I'll just in this verse, the word Karma obtainable by the Vedic ritualistic system, is significant. The Vedas say Sarva Dharma Nishta Sata Janmavi Puman Virinchantam Eti. One who strictly follows the principles of Varnashram Dharma for at least 100 births will be rewarded with the post of Lord Brahma. It is also significant that although Lord Brahma is extremely powerful, he never thinks himself one with the Supreme Personality of God, and he always knows that he is an eternal servant of the Lord. Because the Lord and the servant are identical on the spiritual platform, Brahma is here addressed as Bhagavan. Bhagavan is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. But if a devotee serves him with full faith, The meaning of the Vedic literature is revealed to him. Therefore, Brahma is called Brahmalinga, which indicates that his entire form consists of Vedic knowledge. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shaktam Nirabhutale Swayambhagamayam Dati Swampadantikam Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Shri Govinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we're continuing this section of Srimad Bhagavatam, the structure of the universe. So it's very specific information, very inconceivable information, and then in the purport to this particular one, Srila Prabhupada is pointing out that Lord Brahma, he never thinks himself identical with the Lord, but he always remembers as the eternal servitor of the Lord. And he's addressed as Bhagavan because he is serving the Lord so faithfully. In one sense, there's no difference. Therefore, Brahma is called Brahmalinga, which indicates that his entire form consists of Vedic knowledge. So Prabhupada says at the beginning of the Bhagavad, if you strictly follow the Varnashram Dharma for 100 births, you'll be rewarded with the post of Lord Brahma. So there is a story, isn't there, of King Dhritarashtra. He followed the Varnashram Dharma completely for 99 births. On his 99th birth, he flicked the snake out of the way, and the snake's eyes got poked out by some sticks. He had 100 baby snakes, and they all died. So, because of that, in his next birth, he took birth blind, and his 100 sons died. So,
sorry, can you say why he became blind?
Made him blind.
The Dasa became blind because he killed the snakes.
In his previous life, he was born blind.
I don't understand because I heard that he became blind because yesterday when he was in life, saturated, of course, with all the stuff. You know that makes sense.
What we do, if you have a question, we can enter into discussion. We're just getting warmed up right now. But that was one version, because there's different versions also. But one version of it was Dhritarashtra made a very small mistake, and then the repercussions were very dramatic. So to kind of highlight that if you want to go the ritualistic path, it's difficult at the best of times. And in Kali Yuga, because people are so unqualified, then ritualistic ceremonies are not recommended in the ancient Kali. The Yuga dharmas, the Sankirtan Yuga, just chanting. And even that's difficult enough to get together because there's 10 offences to be avoided. And a lot of those offences are related to how we conduct ourselves outside of chanting or japa, and how well we're cultivating our loving relationships and respect for the devotees. Then this impacts on how our ability to be able to chant well. Really, chanting well means how well are you avoiding the 10 offences. If you're avoiding the 10 offences, then your chanting will be pretty good. But if you're following the karma maya, the Vedic ritualistic system, then it's going to be tricky. And even if you do for 100 births, you're rewarded with the post of Lord Brahma, which is compared to the benefits of performing Sankirtan Yoga for just one lifetime. You don't just get the post of Lord Brahma, you're elevated to the highest position in the creation, which is this Braj Bhakti, this intimate loving service to Krishna. So comparatively, we're being offered a lot more, multiplied 100 times, plus however many more times, taking birth and with Krishna on the same planet, compared to being Brahma after 100 births. And then there's no guarantee when you take birth as Lord Brahma, that even then that'll be the last birth. So that's significant. Also significant is that although Lord Brahma is extremely powerful, he never thinks himself one with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He always knows that he is the eternal servitor. So that's referred to in the translation actually as duality. It says he is devoted, Lord Brahma is devoted to the Supreme Personality of God without deviation, and therefore in one sense he is not different from the Lord. Nevertheless, he should be worshipped not as the monarchs worship him, but in duality. So the monarchs worship Lord Brahma as being the same as God, and that it's all one, whereas actually it's in duality, one in quality, but different in quantity. So that's the duality. One should always remain a servant of the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Worshipful Deity, who therefore on a respectful basis is unto Lord Brahma the form of manifest Vedic knowledge. So Lord Brahma is the head of my Sampradaya, the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, Brahma Sampradaya. He's the Vayaveda, the pure devotee. So we're very lucky we have pure devotees, Lord Brahma. He was in the Brahma Samhita, we learned that Lord Brahma gained darshan of the Lord, became aware of what his relationship is with the Lord. So we're in a very fortunate position. That's not always the case in every universe. Lord Brahma is it's a very demanding service, and one has to be fully surrendered to the Lord to do it properly. And if not, if there isn't a jiva that's qualified to take that position of Lord Brahma, then sometimes Krishna will take the position of Lord Brahma to run the universe, because it's such an exacting service. It has to be done properly. And really it has to be done by a pure devotee. So Bhagavan is the Supreme Personality of God, Krishna, but if a devotee serves him with full faith, the meaning of the Vedic literature is revealed to him. So Brahma Linga indicates his entire form consists of Vedic knowledge. So really, the ability to be conversant with Vedic knowledge is dependent upon how much faith you have in the Supreme Lord and how much you serve him. Then the meaning of the Vedic literature is revealed. So you may be conversant with verses, and you may have read many books, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be conversant with Vedic knowledge. Somebody else may be conversant with Vedic knowledge and they can't even read. There's one story of a devotee, he was reading the Bhagavad Gita and it was upside down, and the devotees were laughing at him. But he was crying, and Lord Chaitanya said, "Why are you crying?" He said, "Because when I think of how the Lord acted as the chariot driver for Arjuna, I'm overwhelmed at how kind the Lord is." So Lord Chaitanya said, "You've understood the Bhagavad Gita." And even though they were all reading it the right way up, and they knew all the verses back to front, they were not actually, the Vedic literature was not actually revealed to them. So the attitude is especially important in accessing information about the absolute truth. It's also significant that although Lord Brahma is extremely powerful, he never thinks himself one with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So sometimes we take up devotional service because we're in distress. And then when the distress is removed, then the impetus to perform devotional service also goes away. And again, the idea comes in, maybe I can be the Supreme Enjoyer after all, and the Supreme Controller. And so a devotee may go back out to try and imitate the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it's important for a devotee to go from the stage of being distressed, which refers basically to the Shudras, then up into the Vaishya is looking for money, then the Kshatriya is curious, and eventually onto the Brahminical platform where there's a strong, intense desire to understand the absolute truth. So Krishna says, of all those that approach me, with a desire to understand the absolute truth are the most dear to me. So he's indirectly saying, quickly shift from being in distress to having knowledge of me and being aware of your position. And unless that shift takes place, then there's every chance that the aspiring devotee can then again be distracted and fall back into this conception of thinking that he is one with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Any questions or comments? Hare Krishna.
You see, with how we understand that person still there's so many examples of him like making mistakes, like he's attracted to his daughter. Of course, we see past that Krishna in this that Krishna puts his devotees into illusion. But at the same time, what are we really learning from that? Even more Brahmanis put into illusion all the time.
Yeah, well, the Bhagavatam is full of stories of devotees who strayed off the path for one reason or another, who were very qualified. So it helps us to see, Rupa Goswami explains the path is difficult to follow because it's crooked and it's slippery with sandalwood paste, the bhakti marg. So it's not a path that's easily traversed. Certainly not one you could traverse unconsciously. It has to be one where you're extremely attentive. And you have to accept at times, to one degree or another, that you will fall from the standard, because it's the transitional stage from being a baby to being a walking toddler is many, many accidents and tumbles and stumbles along the way, although innately the walking propensity is there in the child. So the child doesn't give up, it doesn't become discouraged, it continues on. And then we have examples of, where you would think, well, I'm so advanced now, I'll be okay. And so then there's examples of devotees who were very advanced and they weren't okay, and they had to come back and go through a series of different. So what's interesting about that whole dynamic in spiritual life, and I just heard this recently actually, after the verse Apichet Sudaracharo, the verse in Bhagavad Gita 9:26, where if one sees a person, a devotee performing some abominable activity, if he continues on his devotional service, he should be considered saintly. Then in the next verse he says, he quickly becomes righteous. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he makes the point that the person who quickly becomes righteous is not the person who falls and then continues on, but the person who considers him saintly. So then the real person we have to look out for or worry about is not so much the others that are maybe having some problems, but is in how we are relating to that. Do we still have respect for them? Do we still consider them saintly? If we don't, then it indicates we're not righteous. To quickly become righteous means looking like that would be unrighteous. But to look at that and respect the devotee, Dristaya Svabhava Janataya Vapasasta Dosham, to see that he's like the Ganga and maybe there's something in there, but he's still very advanced and spiritual. One who is advanced in spiritual understanding will bathe in the Ganges without considering the condition of the water. So in the same way, one who is advanced in righteousness has the ability to consider saintly any jiva that's trying to perform devotional service, even though he may make some mistake, or some apparent mistake, according to how we see it. So really it's more, Krishna consciousness is more about checking ourselves than going around trying to have a fix-it list. I'm just writing up a fix-it list, Prabhu. I've got these devotees and I'm going to fix them today, actually. This one's too smelly, this one's too loud, this one's too quiet, and this one's just He's not quite right anyway, but I'm going to sort them out. And you have your little fix-it list. But top of the fix-it list is me, trying to fix yourself. If you can fix yourself, then you can help everybody else to be a better devotee anyway. Any other questions or comments? Or reflections? Or confusions? Another one.
Just following on from that, so should we see like the whole like situation? It's not mundane, people who we get put with in a situation when, so should we see something like, you know, all your association and whatnot as something for you to learn from?
Yeah. Well, consciousness means, first of all, seeing Krishna's hand, seeing Krishna's arrangement, why things are happening the way they are. It's not that Krishna nods off and then things take place and he's not really aware of what's going on. He's aware all the time of everything that's happening. And nothing happens by chance. Who was just saying the other day, it's a very rascal, it's an unscientific term actually, to say something is by chance. Everything is happening because there's a reason behind it. Everything that's taking place. And for the devotee, he's trying to see how Krishna is behind everything. He's trying to develop that. That's what Krishna consciousness means, really. It means seeing that this is an arrangement. Sometimes it's not possible to see the arrangement at the time, so you continue on with faith, and then later on in hindsight, you reflect back and you realize, oh, okay, so that had to happen that way for this to take place. But you would never know. If you discontinue practicing Krishna consciousness, you would really impede your ability to appreciate it was Krishna's arrangement. So sometimes you may not be able to see that, but if you continue on with determination and you break through wherever the difficulty is or the problem is, and you continue on with it, then you start to say, oh, this is Krishna's arrangement because this has made me develop this quality. It's helped me to see things in this way. There's so many, when you hear about the pastimes as well that are taking place with Krishna, and more and more now, Indrajuna Maharaj is starting to excavate all the writings of the previous acharyas, Shiva Maharaj as well, and it starts to become apparent that there's multi-layers of things taking place. So on the surface, this person is getting hit on the head with a club, but then we find out that he was this person in his previous life, and this happened, and these people had to, the babies that were killed, Bhishma was saved, and then we find out that his brothers had been fallen demigods in their past lives, and they'd had to take birth. So initially it just seems like this, but then we look deeper into it. So it's the same with us as well. There's multi-layers of things going on. There's what's going on the surface, then there's what we've done in the past, what they've done in the past, what's the lesson we're supposed to be learning. There's a lot of things happening. Shishi Kodanitaya Maya Pashashi Ki Jai. This whole section in the Bhagavatam, the structure of the universe, it's letting us get a little glimpse into the intricacy of the material world, and it's also very specific as well in how it's describing everything and how things are functioning. So that may challenge our faith. But it's funny the way faith works, actually, because what it challenges is a faith that we've had beforehand about it not being that way. So we already had faith in something. Maybe we were just, like you could just have faith that things are just flying around in the sky by random, and they're just spinning around. And the sun is one amongst millions of suns, and there's not just one sun in the universe. So you have faith in that, but how do you know that in the first place? How do you know much more than beyond what's going on in Les Mahego? How do you even know London exists other than when you go there or people come back from it, or Australia exists? I mean, our world is only really whatever we have experienced it to be as, unless we're going to accept some type of an authority, and then it can go beyond. So our faith is challenged, but then we should be challenging the faith that we had previous to the new type of faith that's being, the new option that's been given to us. Well, you can have this type of faith with these types of people who are maybe not behaving in the best way, don't have the best conduct, and keep changing the story every 10 years. Or you can have faith in this. These are, this is knowledge which has been handed down from people who have very high integrity, very developed levels of consciousness, and the information has never changed. It's always been 8,400,000 species of life. You know, if the scientists did finally count all the species, and it was 8,400,000 species of life, you can be sure next week it'd be 800,000, 8,400,001. We've just found something else, actually. You know, they've always got to change things around and upgrade things. So that's not really what truth is, absolute truth is. So yet our faith is challenged, but we should be looking at what faith that we've accumulated, and how have we come across that faith? How was that faith instilled? The educational system certainly instilled a certain level of faith in the way things are, the way the universe is running. But how can they really? I mean, it would be a lot better if they just said, "I don't know," than perhaps, or maybe, or could be. Because if they say, "I don't know," they don't look very intelligent. If they say, "Perhaps it could be," or "maybe," then even though they don't know, they can still look like they're intelligent, you see. They say a lot of conversations would be more fruitful if they use those three words: I do not know, I do not know. 4 words. At least we could be honest then. We'll have an honest conversation, you know. So what we know is very, very limited, actually.
There's an online comment by Prabhupada. Says, Hare Krishna, my experience mirrors what you are teaching. I am without the company of devotees and feel only shifts to unsatisfactory ways of living and back to the stress you described. Not easy.
Yeah.
What's that? Can you repeat it?
Well, basically, the gist of it was that he's missing, or he would like to be in the association of devotees. So there's a beautiful song by Govinda Das. He says, Bhaja Hure Mana Shinandanandana Abhaya Charanana Brindaye Dulava Manava Janama Satsange Tarahoe Baba Sindure. He says, I've attained this very rare human form of life, and the only way I can cross over this ocean of material existence is by the association of devotees. So that separation, that longing for the association of devotees is good, because then when you get it, you really appreciate it. So sometimes Krishna puts us in a situation where we don't have the association of devotees, and then when we do get the association, we really appreciate it. So that's good. That's Vripalamba, trying to be Krishna conscious in separation. And then that intensifies the sambhogya, the joy of meeting is intensified by feeling the pangs of separation. And that separation can mean a lot of things, actually. Can mean separation from wanting to be on a level of Krishna consciousness that you're not just now, but you would like to be. And so you can feel very unworthy and very unqualified, but at the same time very eager to want to be, to want to be on that level of Krishna consciousness. And that eagerness is something that should never be given up, despite the fact that as we go along in devotional service, we sometimes are very painfully aware of how unworthy and unqualified. No reason to not continue being eager.
Association of minds, especially for those who are also the last few years.
Yeah. That could be a good plug, actually. Sanghas that we're doing. So if anyone wants to join us on a Zoom, we can let them know when the Zooms are. And yeah, it's nice. Helps us to appreciate the association of devotees. And the idea with Sangha is that we become intimately connected. Anger is limb. So we become connected like a body. And if any part of the body is struggling, then obviously immediately you want to help whatever part of the body that is. It's not, oh, it's just the leg, don't worry. It's only the leg. It's all part of the body. So they're all important, everyone's important. And when all the parts of the body work together, then there's a synergy there. So we get a lot more out than we put in if we can develop the art of association.
Could you please repeat what you said before about Chitanasta? Did you say kill the snakes?
Snake. And
That's why it became blind.
from in his previous life.
Oh, that was in the previous life.
Yeah.
And then he became blind again.
And then in his next life, that was the reaction. For blinding the snake, he had to be born blind.
I read the Krishna Dharma, Mahabharata. He says that because when Vyasdev walked into the room, because it was carrying stars against the head. So when the princess saw Vyasadeva, she closed her eyes, and Vyasadeva said, because you have closed your eyes, you will have a son as white as milk, and it will be born blind.
No, that Pandu was white as milk.
And then he said,
Dhritarashtra, Pandu was white as milk. Don't get them mixed up. There's white as milk Pandu.
oh, that's right.
And Dhritarashtra is blind.
I'm mistaken.
But then the reason why she closed her eyes was to facilitate Dhritarashtra's reaction for killing the snake. Or blinding the snake, actually. He blinded the snake and the sons. So that's a multi-layered arrangement going on there. To facilitate him taking birth and be blind, she had her eyes closed so that he could then suffer, because he's innocent. Why would he have to be born and blind just because she closed her eyes? He's innocent. But he was born blind and their eyes were closed because that was his reaction for blinding the snake. You see? So then it's facilitated. So, yeah. Yeah, you have a certain stock of karma, and then the arrangement is made. So it's so intricate, isn't it, the arrangement? And then that jiva takes birth in this situation, in that womb, with that mother with her eyes closed, because he has to get the reaction for blinding that living entity. So it indicates how intensely intricate and how careful we have to be in the material world, how easy it is to make some mistake. That's why if we're always in a humble state of mind and we're always begging for forgiveness and we're always being very menial and submissive and compliant with whatever the arrangement is, then we've got a much better chance of navigating our way out of the material world. Whereas if we bump into things and we get agitated and we react and become aggressive and confrontational, then all we're doing is we're just embroiling ourselves in the material energy longer. So we're in the process of extrication and not implication. So extrication is we're trying to loosen up and let go. And implication is we're becoming more and more attached and more in the fighting spirit and getting in getting my own back for how this person treated me. I was just listening this morning, actually. Mahatma Prabhu was talking about resentment is a form of anger that continues on and just destroys the immunity system over a period of time. It's a continual, like, buzzing thing going on all the time inside the system until we give up this resentment. And when he did the forgiveness course quite a few years ago now, there wasn't as much information, but he was saying just recently in the new series, which is Spiritual Bypassing, that there's a lot more research that's been done now to conclusively prove that resentment and negative emotions, they really tax the health. So if you want to stay healthy, then you have to stay very happy and positive and kind and well-intentioned and compassionate. Even if you're just doing that for yourself, even if you don't really care about anybody else, you just care about number one. Still, you should be very, very loving and affectionate toward everybody, and then your own health will improve. So that's why Lord Chaitanya advises that we chant in a humble state of mind, and that we're tolerant, and we're ready to offer respect and not look for respect. Sometimes we're only prepared to offer respect if we get the respect back. Or the Christmas present, you buy somebody a Christmas present and they buy you one, and their Christmas present is only worth half as much as your Christmas present. So you think, okay, well, next year he's going to get some really rubbish present for that. So I'll only show respect according to how much I get back. But real respect is just to show the respect, despite whether the person shows it back or not.
How can you overcome such a problem when you treat someone nicely and he keeps saying bad things to you? How do you overcome that feeling of not, taking advantage or,
Yeah, well, you may forgive somebody, and you may have no an intention anymore in your heart, so you're clear. But at the same time, you can forgive, but you don't forget. So you remember that this is what happened, and for his sake as well, that therefore you keep a distance from the person. Rupa Goswami says you can respect the person who chants in your mind, but you may not offer any dandavat to him or inquire confidentially from him. But still you respect the person. You're still his well-wisher. But you realize this is not going to be good for him, and it's not going to be good for me. I don't want to put him in harm's way by allowing him to be offensive like he was in the past, or take advantage of me or exploit me in some way. So for his own sake, therefore I'm going to keep a distance from him. As they say, good fences make good neighbors. Good fences make good neighbors. And in terms of relationships, fences are parameters that you lay down, the parameter that I'm not prepared to tolerate this in a relationship. So if you consider yourself my friend, then this is out with what I would consider a friend, how a friend should behave toward me. And then the person can think, do I want him to be my friend? Or do I want to continue acting in the way that I am? And if he does, then you know he doesn't really want to be your friend. That's fine, You don't want friends who are there only under duress. That's why Krishna's put us here in the material world. He only wants us if we want him. If we don't want him, okay. There's the material world. I just heard a story, Srila Prabhupada. He was in his rooms in India, and he picked up a cockroach. He picked up a cockroach, and he said to the cockroach, he opened the window and he said, "There is the material world. I give it to you." And he threw the cockroach out. So we're running around in the material world like cockroaches, and that facility is there for us if we don't really want Krishna. And Krishna wants to have a loving relationship with us, just like we want to have a loving relationship with everybody else. But at the same time, he has a certain standard certain level of integrity that he expects from the living entity. If the living entity is not going to come up to that, then here's a species of life that's appropriate for that type of attitude that you've got. And it's the same with devotees as well. We have to earn the appreciation and the trust and respect of the devotees. And so sometimes you may fall foul, you may make some mistake in devotional service, things may go horribly wrong, and then you have to build bridges. You have to tread the path of rectification of how you can cultivate those relationships again and win back that person's faith and trust in you. If you want to, if you consider that important, you may not consider it important, and you may just want to move on, to greener pastures. So that is sometimes the challenge in devotional services is how to build the bridges, how to take the intermediary steps towards building up a relationship again with the person. No devotee would write anybody off, but he would certainly be a lot more cautious in the next time, so that the same thing doesn't happen again. So yeah, it's a great art, associating nicely with devotees, and also learning how to just respect some devotees from afar. They're chanting, okay, then Krishna Tiyajat Manasha, with the mind, I will show some respect. And then this one is second initiated, he's fully engaged in service, he's totally given himself to the order of a spiritual master, I'll pay him dandavats. And then this devotee, his heart is completely devoid of the propensity to criticize others, he's only well-intentioned, he may point something out, but it's only result-orientated feedback he's giving. So that person, I really want to get feedback from him. I'd really like to find out what he thinks I should be doing, and get advice from him. They're the three main kind of categories of relationships that we have in devotional service. Okay, so I'll finish there. Iskon Govinda ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaura Premanandi, Haribo. Gaura Bhaktivinoda ki, Jai.